Welcome to Inspirational Journeys, everyone. My name is Ann Harrison Barnes, and today I have a special guest with me. But before I introduce her, I would like to give a special shout out to Karen Steele, who's a publicist through Baker Publishing. She made this all possible. My special guest today is Patricia Bradley, who is the author of the new book entitled Standoff. Welcome to the show, Patricia.
Thank you. Thank you, Ann. I'm glad to be here. This is always exciting, and Karen is such a sweetheart. I hope you get to meet her soon.
I do too. I really do. But first of all, I'm going to ask you to tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, because here on Inspirational Journeys, your story matters, and nobody can tell your story better than you can.
Well, thank you. I live in Northeast Mississippi. I'm 20 miles or 2 hours from Oxford, Mississippi, which is where Faulkner wrote his books, John Grisham too. And I am 4 miles to the Tennessee border and 20 to the Alabama. So I'm in the very northeast corner. I have two little rescue kitties. One of them chose and the other one chose me, so that's the way that one worked. And I've been dating the same guy for 22 years now, so that's basically. And I've been writing most of my life, not most of it. I was 35 before I ever started writing, so I never intended to write. I was a reader, and then suddenly these people came to live in my head and wouldn't go away till I told the story.
I know that feeling.
Yep.
When the characters come live in your head, you got to write them down, because I'm a writer too. So.
Well, they'll bug you.
Yes, they will, even in the middle of the night. Honestly.
Right. So, usually in the middle of the night.
Yeah. Either that or when you're doing something and you can't write things down.
Yeah, like in the car. I've gotten where I carry a recorder, so that when those things come and I'm driving, I can at least speak it into my phone, and there's enough there that of course, with my Southern accent, Siri doesn't, and the recorders aren't real Southern friendly or Southern drawl friendly. We do not have a Southern Siri, so she never understands. And I can't do like speak a text. If I did that and sent it, there's no telling what would be on there.
Well, now the dictation has kind of gotten a little better, but Siri herself, no, we do not have a Southern Siri, and I'm in Georgia, so I have to use my professional voice when I'm talking to her, because if I don't, she is gonna. Now I might slip into my Southern accent because we're kind of. You're in the Mid-South, I'm in the Deep South. Sounds like you're right. I've actually been to Tunica and Eudora and into South Haven. It sounds like you're in South Haven, Mississippi.
Oh. Yeah, I lived. I can remember when South Haven Goodman Road, which runs east and west, I think. Anyway, it was a dirt road part of the way for a long time, and now it needs to be at least 6 lanes. I think it's only 4, but it needs to be 6.
Wow.
And when I can remember when Tunica was cotton fields and soybean fields. And
yeah,
you probably,
casinos and some other stuff.
72, Highway 72, I don't know if you're in southern Georgia or northern.
South Central.
South Central, okay. I have friends in Noonan, so.
Oh, nice. Okay. So before I get into your writing, I have to ask, because I saw this on your website and in your bio. You say you like to throw a little mud on a wheel. What does that mean?
I'm a potter. I have been doing pottery since 2000, I think 2000, the year 1999, 2000. At the time I decided to take lessons, I needed an occupation. I was trying to work on a story, and I needed an occupation, something unusual. And I saw these 2 girls at a conference, and they were doing pottery, and I thought, oh, that's what I need. So I took lessons, And my teacher said I was not the best student he ever had, but I was the most determined.
When I saw throw a little mud on the wheel, you know, I'm out in the country too, and I'm thinking you like to go. And when I first saw that, I thought you like to go get a little mud on the tires, do a little mud bike.
No, it's I'm a potter.
No, that's fine. It just that's the first thing that popped into my head. I thought that was kind of
I hadn't thought about that.
Yep. But so what inspired you to become a writer?
It's like I said, these people came to I was always a reader. But when I turned 35, I couldn't sleep. It's like the clock went off and it says, okay, we're going to stay awake a while now. And I would lay there and stare at the ceiling. And one night as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, trying to go to sleep, this man appeared in my vision, and he was standing at a window, and behind and on the other side of the window, there were smokestacks billowing. They were belching smoke. And he turned to me and he said, my life wasn't supposed to turn out like this. I thought, wow. So,
and you're probably like me when a character says me something, what?
Yeah, well, that's the first time that had ever happened. I had never given a thought to writing other than, I think I could do that, but it was never serious. I never pursued it and didn't even think about telling a story till I started telling stories to myself of why his life didn't turn out that way. And so then the other characters came and I began to write them down, and I started out writing short stories, and Woman's World bought 3 of my short stories. The Woman's World bought the very first thing I ever wrote, which was amazing, and it was a God thing, because in the first place, the required word count was 2,500, and I sent 3,500. And that the editor liked the story and cut it, and they bought it. And I mean, it was the very first thing I'd ever written. And then I think that was meant as encouragement for me to keep writing. And so from short stories, I started working on a book that will never see the light of day. And the characters have. Now, I have taken the characters from those. I wrote 2 books from when I started writing till I went to work in 2000. And but the characters are the only thing that will ever see the light of day, and they've changed quite a bit. But I got serious about writing in 2010 and took some workshops with Susan May Warren and began and put together a book and got an agent, and rest is history.
Wow, that is amazing.
It is amazing.
Yeah, and I used to be, I would get they're audiobooks now, but because I'm totally blind. I don't know if Karen told you that, but I would get these books on cassette for years, since I was 5 years old. And I know this is about you, but I thought I'd share my experience.
I'm interested.
Okay, cool. And I'm an indie author, but so I was listening to this book. It's called New Stories of the Well, I had written before then. Now let me back up. Before then, I'd done creative writing, gotten into creative writing contests when I was in like 4th grade, and dabbled in writing when I was in high school, but had no clue what I was doing. But then I was listening to New Stories of the South in 2001. It was the 2001 edition. I think it was like in 2003. I don't remember. But anyway, and Lee Smith, who edited the book, she gave an introduction where she talked about this girl the student of hers who didn't think she knew how to write. And when she told, what you could do, how you could picture these things and start writing, then the characters just started coming to me, and I had to stop for a few years for various reasons. But then the music inspired me writing, and then I've just been writing ever since.
Great. That's amazing. I'm excited for you. I love writing.
Oh, I love it too. And I love mysteries.
I tell people I like to kill people because it's easier to get them to kill them than to get them together.
Yeah, but
But it's all about justice.
right,
I say it lightly, but it's all about justice.
right. So what was the inspiration for Standoff for your Park Ranger series?
I always wanted to be a park ranger. Life choices took me in a different direction, and I never got to be one. And so I thought I would live vicariously through these characters. I've always wanted to write about the Natchez Trace. I love the Trace. I actually thought it's 30 miles from me where I live, and I thought that's where I would set the book because I knew about this end of the Trace, and even on up into to Nashville. But my editor fell in love with the idea of Natchez, and so I had never been there, and I'm so glad that that's what we chose because I love that town. It is just so full of history and beautiful old homes. I mean, the atmosphere is just different there, and great places to eat.
Because I thought when I read the book, I was thinking, to be honest with you, parts of the Trace, I was thinking it was an old country road.
It is a 2-lane road that starts in Nashville, or it actually started in Natchez because the riverboat people would float their goods. It actually started with bison, and then from bison, fur trappers used it. The bison were looking for salt licks, and so they made trails all the way from Nashville down to Natchez. And then the fur traders used it, and then what they call the cane tucks, they floated their goods down the Mississippi to Natchez or to New Orleans, and then they would walk back to New Orleans because there were no boats going upriver yet because there were no steamboats. And so to get back to Kentucky, they took the Trace. And it was in places that is just, it's really no wider than a 2-lane road.
Oh, wow.
Some of the places some of the places they have the old Trace, and you can see, I mean, it was very, I don't know how Andrew Jackson moved his troops from Nashville to Natchez on it either, but he did in the War of 1812. So,
wow.
it's full of rich with history. This book is set at, I use Fort Rosalie. Only it's not. I was
going to ask you about that too.
Yeah, it is. The fort is no longer there. It's just a large, grassy, tree-filled lot that they use. Rosalie Mansion is right next to it, but the Park Service doesn't own Rosalie Mansion. And then Emerald Mound, which is in there, that is an Indian burial mound. In fact, it's the largest this side of, east of the Mississippi. And that you won't find Indian burial mounds that large anywhere except Mexico, I think. And then Windsor Ruins, which is not part of the Natchez Trace, but it figured into my story. That is a fascinating story. This was a 5-story house, and it burned in like 1900, somewhere right around there, because a man did not. He dropped his cigar and it caught something on fire and it burned to the ground. But
wow.
But the columns, there's 22 columns that are still standing, those 5 stories, and it's just real eerie. And I thought, oh, that was a perfect place to put Luke on the drug deal.
Oh yeah, I was wondering about that because that really kind of it sounds like some of the stuff that you hear about in the news, well, not quite I don't know about quite as much now because of the pandemic, but still, did you get inspiration from any news stories or?
No, that actually I had read a ranger. They interviewed some of the rangers on the Trace up around Tupelo, and they had just made a big drug bust on the trace. And that's kind of what gave me my idea to have, because drugs are moved up and down the trace. Because it's so isolated, and there are not a lot of rangers. It's not patrolled. It's only patrolled by the law enforcement rangers, and there aren't a whole lot of them. You know, it's not like a great big police force. So it's very, there's not a lot of traffic on it. So as long as someone doesn't break the law, they probably wouldn't be stopped. So I'm sure the drug dealers adhere to the 50-mile-an-hour speed limit. Of course, I kind of creep over that because all I could get was a ticket if they did. But they usually won't bother you at 55. 50 miles an hour is so slow.
Yeah.
But it's a beautiful area. The trees are beautiful. It's got swamps. It goes by lakes. I mean, it goes right through the heart of Jackson. And it goes all the way up through Alabama. It goes from Mississippi to Alabama to Tennessee. And there's 3 states involved on the trace.
Oh, okay. So, sorry, my mind just went blank. Tell me a little bit about your process. I don't know why my mind went blank there, but
mine does it all the time, and it doesn't get any better.
Oh dear.
So, do you want my writing process?
Yeah, kind of tell me. Do you plot your do you plot your novels, or are you a Lancer or somewhere in between?
Every book is different. This one, most of the time, I start out with 2 or 3 things. I have to know who my characters are when they walk on the page. What made them who they are? What happened in their past? So what are their fears? What do they want more than anything? What's their goal going to be for the story? And I have to know the crime. Why does the crime happen now? Why did it not happen 5 years ago? I mean, what's so special about the crime, and why did the criminal choose right now to commit this crime? I have to know that. And then I have to figure out how I'm going to catch the bad guy, which I had a really hard problem on this one because they were pretty smart, and I'm just, they can't be dumb. They can't make a dumb mistake. So it took me a while to figure out how they were going to get caught. But I don't really outline, and I'm not a big plotter. I plot a little bit along as I go along. The story I'm just finishing edits for the 2nd book. And every book I start, it's like, now how did I do this again? I know I can do it, but now how did I do it?
Yeah, it's like it seems like you have no idea what you're doing when you first started.
Yeah, and how did I ever do it? But I know I did because I've got 11 books. So, but
wow.
And most of them since 2013.
You sound like me because I used to pants, but then I do bare bones plotting and then go from there.
Yeah, right. I do, and that's kind of I used to plot originally the first series, the Logan Point. I plotted that. Most of those books were plotted out with kind of how I was going to do it. But as more I wrote, the further I got away from that. Until now, I have to know. I have to have my beginning and have an idea of the ending and kind of what the middle's going to be. And then because if I don't, I've found that if I don't start writing, the story won't come to me now. It's like I have to be writing for the story to come.
Maybe that's what I need to do.
Because I can overthink, the last book I kept, I'm stuck. I mean, what am I going to do in the middle? And then it's like God says, we'll start writing and we'll find out. And so
there's a tip for you folks.
Yeah. And and a lot of times my characters won't talk to me until I can do all of these things in my head, but until I start putting them in the story, they don't always talk to me till then. Then I'll put them in the story, and then I'll have them try to do something they don't want to do, and they'll say, I ain't doing there. And so I have to look at it and see where I went wrong. They'll quit talking to me. But usually I have to start writing for them to talk to me. It's weird.
I've had them talk to me when I'm not writing, but because I had my main character of the book I'm working on, she told me at 4:00 one morning, I need you to let me tell my story. So that's why I'm redoing it in first person.
They'll do that.
Yes.
It's fun and it's amazing, and it's really a great way to write.
Mm-hmm. So well, now I'm gonna ask you about the upcoming. I know you can't say much about it, I'm sure, but will we see Luke and Brooke in the next series, or is it going to be another set of characters?
It's another set of characters. Brooke is in it briefly, but it will be Emma who is in this story. She's the interpretive ranger.
Yeah.
And then there will be a new ranger who takes over as the district ranger for the Natchez area.
Oh, okay.
There are two separate. Brooke, the interpretive rangers are separate from the law enforcement rangers.
Oh, okay.
So
see, I learn something new every day.
Yeah, and see, I didn't know that. I thought I could just write a story about the Natchez Trace Rangers, and they were National Park Service Rangers, which they are, but they come under a different division. And and the main office was at Tupelo, which isn't far from me. And I went down and interviewed the Natchez Trace Parkway director. I interviewed her, and she's a law enforcement ranger. And all of the ones on the Natchez Trace that are in patrol cars are law enforcement rangers. It can get kind of confusing, so it's really, because see, I thought she could be a ranger and solve the case, just a plain ranger. That's why I ended up making Brooke go through the law enforcement training, because I needed her to be able to work on the case. I had started out with her just being an interpretive ranger. And I very quickly found out that was not going to work, because they would not let her work on the case.
Oh, okay. I was just curious because I was wondering if she would be, but Emma was Brooke's best friend too, so.
Right. Yeah, and she shows up some, and you hear a little bit more about their story in this one. But I usually take one character from each book and add a new character to it for a love interest.
Do you keep like a journal where the scenes that you need to dump, do you have like a place to put those where you can use those?
Called cuts. I don't dump very many, but I do have a place. I write in Scrivener. And
okay.
That makes it really easy to move things around. But I have a folder that says cuts, and if something's not working, I'll put it over there. There's just different ways you can do it in Scrivener, but a lot of times it's just simpler to cut something out and store it for in case you need it later.
I've been doing a lot of dumps, and I'm finding out that my series is bigger than I thought.
That can happen. You never know.
Yeah, I know. So, but okay. So tell me, there's one thing that you got me curious about now. The law enforcement rangers and the police, do the law enforcement rangers have the same authority that the police do, or is there a difference?
They do. No, they are on the trace. They have the same authority. They have the authority over the trace. A lot of times, the people who have authority on the trace are the park rangers and the FBI. So and of course the sheriff of the county, they work with him, but mostly on the trace, the park rangers are the authority. And if there's a murder, if a murder occurs, then the FBI can investigate, but they don't always. I mean, it can get very convoluted of who can do what.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but and usually the rangers will work with the local sheriff. There's absolutely no reason for them not to. There's not
Oh, okay.
there's not a big conflict in them working together. They usually, in most of my stories, and especially this next one, they work together. The sheriff and the rangers.
Oh, okay. Okay, because I was curious about that because I didn't know, that's the first time I'd ever read about park rangers, the park ranger service at all. So it kind of made me curious. Yeah. So after this book, are you working on anything? I mean, after the second book, are you working on a new story or are you just in edits?
I'm already working on a new story. It's set on the Trace. It will probably feature Clayton Bradshaw, the other ranger.
Yeah.
There. I'm thinking, I'm just now starting it and thinking about it. And the premise is a woman, the heroine's grandmother on her deathbed asked her to clear an ancestor's name who had been accused of murdering someone. And this would be back in the 1850s. And so she is coming back to Natchez. She lived there as maybe a young girl and a teenager. And then she moved away and she's a history professor now. So and that will give her the way to get into the history part. I like writing about cold cases, real old cases.
Oh, okay.
A lot of my stories have cold cases in them. In fact, I did a whole series on them in Memphis.
Oh, okay, cool. So do you research a lot of true crime to get the inspiration for your stories?
No, they come to me. The story itself, they're totally from my imagination.
Oh, okay. So do you do your research for your stories ahead of time or do you research as you go?
A little bit of both. I do as much as I can, but a lot of times like tracking devices and things like that, I'll have to stop and research some. And the guns, if I don't retain the knowledge about guns that well, so I have to research the type of gun, type of bullet it would use, so that if they're looking for casings, what kind they would find. I mean, there's a lot of research that goes into a romantic suspense or any kind of mystery.
Oh yeah, I'm finding that out too.
Oh yeah, there are easier markets to write for.
Yeah, but you can't. But I can't not write write a mystery because that's my genre right there. And I'm finding that for me, mine is more not evil type, but no, yeah. I don't write that kind of stuff. But mine is a little bit more on the supernatural side of things too. So. Yeah, because one of my main characters sees her grandmother in an angelic form.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of it's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So do you have any advice for aspiring authors?
Don't ever give up. I wrote for 32 years before I was published.
Oh, wow.
And people say, well, how did you keep writing? And for a lot of those years, I would get a short story published every so often. And that would encourage me. But the other was, I knew I had a good story. And I knew God had given me this gift. And to not use it would be wasted. And I just didn't think God was wasting my time. Or I don't think he would have me to waste my time if something wasn't going to come of it. But I had to do the hard work, learn the craft, so that when he does open a door, you're ready to go through it.
Right. Right. So I'm gonna ask a fun question. I have not asked this
Okay.
question in a while, but I figure you might you would have a really good answer. So if you could have a conversation with anyone, past or present, who would that be?
It would probably be Peter. I would always say Paul, but then I think no, it'd be Peter because I'm more like him than I am Paul. But
Mine would be Hannah, mostly, but I've got others too, but still. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
now, if I could ask, if you limit it to writers, I would probably want to talk to Agatha Christie.
Oh my
She's a master storyteller.
Yes.
And and she can describe people in such a easy way. You know, it sounds easy. It couldn't have been easy. I mean, you know, it's hard to make your writing look like it's easy.
I know, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, and you can learn, I can learn from her. I'm going to start reading her books again, some of them, and see, because I read a blog yesterday and they were using, how they did her descriptions. And it was just amazing how you could, this one character that was a butler that you never saw again, but you had such a clear picture of him. And I thought, that's a gift. And I want to see how she does that.
Mm-hmm. My favorite of hers, I've read a lot of hers. My favorite was Miss Marple.
Yeah, I like Miss. I never did like Perot.
No, me neither. Now, Mr. Porcupine Detective was okay, but Miss Marple was my favorite.
Yeah, I like Miss Marple. She was very good.
Yep. So, now, do you have any questions for me?
Well, how long have you been writing?
I actually started, and I got a book published that was kind of it was a bad book. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about that because it was when I was really just learning the craft, but I really started, I mean, I've been doing creative writing since I was in 4th grade, and then I dabbled in high school, but I really got started in 2003. And then I stopped for a while because I was going through a really rough patch in my life. Yeah. And then I got back, and then I got started again in 2010.
Okay, good. At the same time I did.
Wow.
That's good. Yeah, that's when I went to the first. That's when I got at Critique Partners, and I went to my first Deep Thinkers retreat, which was Susie May Warren and Rachel Hawk had, and it was an eye-opening. And I basically learned. I went to 4 of them, 4 different years, and I basically learned how to write from them. What I was missing. I knew I had a good story.
Right. So, and I'm in a writers group too. A few of them. I have a friend of mine who she has a Writing Warriors for Jesus Patreon group that I'm a part of, and I'm a part of a writing group for an organization for writers with disabilities, and in different groups on Facebook and stuff like that. But so I'm curious, because you're traditionally published, I'm indie published, so I self-published, well, with some help, I self-published my books. But do you do 1 book a year, or?
I'm wanting to do 2. I'm putting together a proposal for love-inspired suspense. The Rebel books are 90 to 100,000, and I do write them in about 4 months. And then, but the love-inspired are only 55, and I think I could easily do another one. And to me, that would be a good way to keep my name out fresh. It would help my Rebel books. And I have indie published with a group in an anthology 3 times I did. I wrote for Harlequin, 2 stories for Harlequin's Sweet Romance Heartwarming. Mm-hmm. And I like that, but those are 75,000 words, and it's just hard to write a 75,000 word story and a 100,000 word story in a year. That's just a lot of writing, and I do a lot of writing, but I'm kind of wanting to not write quite that much.
Yeah, I've had to I'm having to redo one of mine because I just had a really bad experience with one of the publishers, the print on demand publishers I went with, for editing. So I'm having to redo it. And I self-published it, not knowing it, for a second edition. So I'm going to have to update it and do a new. And the story is not going to be anything like what it was. It was 64,000. Then I increased it to like 90-something thousand. Then now I'm cutting it down because there's just too much and it's not all working. And a lot of it's going to be branched out into new series, into new books for the series, some short reads, so I'm kind of just working through it.
Yeah, and that's what writing is. You learn as you go a lot of times, and the more you write, the more you learn.
Right.
And get feedback. You need to get feedback, but it just I know that this last edit I did had the least amount that I had to go back and correct, and that just blew my mind away. But I think I'm finally maybe getting it. So let's see, I've written 8. This one is 9. I'm just doing edits on 10, and I'm about to start the 11th one. And then I have 2 heartwarming books. So that's 13 books and 12 of them were since the 1st of January 2013.
Wow. And I do some professional writing too. So, and I know I asked you if you had questions for me, but then I ended up with more questions. So do you write every day, or do you have a routine that you?
When I'm on deadline, when I first start writing, I usually take about 2 months to think about a book and the characters and work on the character sketch, and I have a diagram that I use that I want to know what their flaws are, what their competing values are. I want to know what they fear, and what is the wound, what happened to them when they were young that changed their outlook on life and made them who they are when they walk on the page. All these things, it takes me about 2 months to get there and to kind of work on the story. And so that leaves me and I usually have about 4 months that I write every day. I have a word count, and in the beginning, it's 1,500 a day for 5 days a week. I want anywhere from 5,000 to 7,500 words a week. And then as I get more into the story, I want 2,000 words a day or 10,000 words a week. And toward the end, I shoot for 15,000 a week.
Because once you get into that flow.
Right. It takes me a while to get into the flow and get.
I know, me too. But once I get going, I can go for 2 or 3 hours, and
Yeah. In the beginning, I might take all day to get 700 words if I get that much.
So when you said you do a character sketch, for me, I do character interviews for my blog.
Yeah, that's good.
That's how I learn a lot about backstory and
how
I flesh out stuff. So
yeah, either one works. I do. Have you ever heard of James Scott Bell?
Yes.
Okay, I do his White Hot Document, where you tell the story, as much of it as you know. Take a few days, and that helps me to get what I know in my head down. That may not stay that way, but it's the story as I know it right then. So it's that makes it. It just if I can get it on paper, doesn't matter what it looks like. I just do free writing basically, and I also do that with my character. I'll ask them to tell me their story, and a lot of times, I'll just free write whatever they say. But to get there, I have already been thinking about what their flaws are and what their dark moment story, what happened in their past that gave them a fear that wounded them, and what will they do to keep it from happening again? People will do anything to keep from being hurt again.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's what I have my cats come to visit.
Oh, my daughter came over here for a minute just to get my phone, but
Yeah,
you sound like your stories are character driven like mine.
they are. They drive the plot.
Yeah, exactly. Because without
Yeah.
them, I'd be stuck.
Oh yeah, yeah. If my character doesn't talk to me, I don't know what they're gonna do.
I know. And it
Yeah.
keeps you asking, okay, so why did she do this? What was,
Yeah.
and it's like, and if they don't talk, it'll lose you.
That's right. You can't go any further. I have to,
Mm-mm.
usually I've done something in the past. Uh, and I usually start over at 30,000 because I usually hit a wall at 30,000. And a lot of times I'll hit that wall again at 60 and I start over again to see if I can find out where I went the wrong way.
So when you say you start over, do you start from scratch or do you read
No,
through and?
I just read through. I edit. I go back through
Ooh,
and edit.
okay, yeah.
I don't edit as I write. Um, I don't edit a lot. Um, every day I may look over what I wrote the day before, but most of the time I just pick up and start writing. And then like at 30,000, 35, sometimes I'll go back and start at the beginning and see if the beginning still fits, because a lot of times that opening chapter changes because your characters change.
Mm-hmm.
So that's basically what I do.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm a lean writer, very lean writer, and I write very. I'm a pretty fast writer. I'm not fast as a lot of people. I can't crank out 3 books in a year, but when I'm writing, it usually I can hit my 10,000 a week. So that'd be 9 weeks if I stuck at 2,000 a week.
Sometimes that's hard for me. Some days especially if I'm drafting, I can get 4,000 in a day, and then the next day I'm like 200 or nothing.
Yeah, I know that feeling. I never have. I think I did 4,000 words one time. I've hit 3 a lot of, get 3, 3,100, 32
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times as I'm finishing the book. But for them, I'm happy if I get 2,000.
Wow. So, have you done National Novel Writing Month, NaNoWriMo, before?
I've started it a bunch of times. Never have finished it because either edits come in, or most of the time edits come in and they have a deadline and I have to stop. Well, if you take 2 weeks out of November, you can't get it back on Nano.
No, but you know what? If I start it, I'll start it sometimes because Camp Nano's coming up next month, and I can set my own goal. But in November, I'll start it. If I finish, I finish. If I don't, I don't.
Yeah. Well, that's basically me.
Yeah, to me, it's not the winning, because it's so easy to win, way too easy. But for me, the winning is not the important thing. I was excited when I won it back in 2014, but I ended up accidentally losing that novel for some reason, and it was too all over the place anyway. But I will start it, and then either something comes up, or I'm thinking I need to edit this. I need to go back and look at this again, and that kind of stuff. And of course, you got Thanksgiving, and when my daughter's here, everything, But if I finish it, the participation, the fun in working with other writers, and doing the word sprints, that's what makes it fun for me.
Yeah, that it is, but it's a community thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a social thing too. I mean, you're making connections, and that's so for people who work alone like we do. And I'm an extrovert, but I'm also have to be introverted too to sit in this house by myself and write 8 hours a day or whatever it takes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really good when you do make connections and you connect with people.
Right. Do you listen to music when you write, or do you have to have it pretty
sometimes, and as long as it doesn't have words. Most of the time I don't think of it. If it has words, I'll find myself typing what the words are.
I have not done that. I will get if it's got words, I usually get distracted, but I've never found myself typing the words in a book.
I don't listen to anything with words, but I do listen to instrumental. And like, if I'm going to write a really tense scene, I will put on the Phantom of the Opera, which I love.
Ooh.
And that really sets the Batman Returns. Now, some of those, I have suspense music on Prime that I will listen to. If
I've got Amazon Music Unlimited, so there's a classical for writing. There's a couple playlists, classical for writing and now jazz for writing, and I'll use those.
Yeah, I listen to a lot of classical music.
Ooh, you know
love
what?
Classical.
We have so much in common. It's amazing.
Yeah, I really enjoy classical.
Me too. So, do you have any other questions for me? Because I know we're running long.
No, I guess that's about it. I'm judging for the Genesis, and I thought the deadline was in July, and I got an email today said it was 4:00 today, and I still have 4 to read and judge.
Oh, okay. All right. So, do you have a favorite Bible verse you'd like to share? And excuse me, I'm plugging in my computer.
I do. When I sign a book, I put the reference to it. It is delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. But then
37.
Yeah, that's 37:4. But then there's verse 7 that says, "Wait patiently for the Lord to act." So I tend to forget verse 7.
Now, for the viewers, do you have a book that you'd like to show the viewers before we wrap up?
You mean this one?
Yeah.
Standoff. Yeah. That's the one, and I love the cover. That's a pretty nice cover.
I got the audiobook and it was really good. The narrator, she did a really good job.
Somebody else told me the audio was good. I can't listen to my books. I can't read them after they're published. I have not read one yet, and I started out listening to the first one, and I just can't do it. And I'm not an audio person. I see I see the story in my head.
Like a movie?
Uh-huh.
I'm totally blind and I'm a visual person that way. And people ask me, how do you see things like that? I can't describe it. I can't explain it.
You can't. That's amazing, though, and I'm so glad you do.
Yeah. Now, was Daisy, is Daisy, the grandmother, was she, oh my gosh. She reminds me of.
I liked her.
Yes.
I wish I like writing older characters because they can give wisdom and get away with it. They can tell you what to do and get away with it.
Okay. So, would you like to close us out in prayer?
Oh, yeah, I will. Lord, I just want to thank you for this time. I thank you for bringing Anne to me. What a joy she is, Lord. And I do wish her well on her writing journey, and guide her path as she goes, and guide her thoughts in her writing. And I pray, Lord, as we do write, that we remember we're writing for an audience of one, which is you, and that anything else we get is icing on the cake. I thank you for this opportunity, and I thank you for Rebel Books that has been so wonderful to me. Thank you for this opportunity to talk to Anne and make a new friend. In Christ's name I ask, amen.
Amen. So we challenge you today to go out there and read to get inspired, write something inspiring, and share your creation with the world. For when you've touched one life, you've touched 1,000. Thanks for joining us on Inspirational Journeys. And remember, your story matters. Have a blessed day.